Now, My 9 News at 10. Tonight, deja vu in New Orleans.
They're expecting 8 to 10 feet of water on the east bank of Plaquemines. They're expecting up to 12 feet of water in some low-lying areas.
Residents are packing up and clearing out on mandatory evacuation orders.
You will be on your own for the duration of the storm.
But this time, the feds are doing a heck of a job preparing the Gulf Coast for a hurricane that could be just as devastating as Katrina.
The message to the people of the Gulf Coast is this storm is dangerous.
I think they're doing what they can to do things right this time, because the last time it was a mess.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Megan Vega. We begin tonight with Hurricane Gustav fast approaching the Gulf Coast. A mass effort is now underway to prevent history from repeating itself in New Orleans. All weekend, people have been packing up and getting out of town. Today, the mayor issuing a mandatory evacuation order. This is just some of the devastation as the deadly hurricane tore through parts of the Caribbean. Right now, the death toll there stands at 94. Now, it is impossible to tell what damage the storm might do when it reaches the United States, but already the Republicans are revising their convention, which kicks off tomorrow.
We have to do away with our party politics, and we have to act as Americans.
Among the changes, President Bush, originally slated to speak in St. Paul, will now remain in the Gulf Coast region. The latest for you right now, as of tonight, the evacuations of New Orleans is said to be complete. The storm is currently a Category 3, meaning it's a little bit weaker than originally anticipated. Now, if the storm stays on its current track, it will make landfall midday tomorrow. We begin our live team coverage of Hurricane Gustav with Shay Ryan, who's been tracking this storm all weekend. Hey there, Shay.
Hi there. Take a look on Viper 3D, and you can see Gustav right now. Very large storm. In fact, the cloud bands are already extending into Tennessee and North Carolina. As we take another viewpoint here, you can also see, as we look closer in at this storm, that we don't have that clearly defined eye. We have what's called central dense overcast. It's where you get very thick cloud cover covering over that normally well-defined eye. This is indicative of a storm that is usually weaker. However, Gustav is still a major hurricane and a major threat to the Gulf states. Let's take a look now here at the wind speeds and the rain bands that are already working their way into the panhandle of Florida and into New Orleans. We've seen the highest wind speed in New Orleans so far at about 26 miles per hour. What the Gulf Coast can expect over the next 12 hours or so is, take a look. Hurricane strength winds will begin along the Gulf Coast, I believe, between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning, and then it'll take another about 6 to 8 hours before we begin to see the eye actually reaching the Gulf Coast. That's where the most intense winds are going to come from. Before that, there's going to be some very heavy rainfall, already seeing some of that working its way into New Orleans right now. Now, we're also going to be talking about more on why the location of the eye, when it makes landfall, will greatly determine how hard hit New Orleans will be. So here's a look at the path, and you can see it looks like it's going to be moving just to the west when it makes it landfall onto New Orleans. That's key to what is going to happen and how much damage may be affecting New Orleans. So we'll have more on that coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, thanks, Shay. Well, it is the calm before the storm. Hurricane Gustav's eye is barreling towards its bullseye, the bayou. That set off a mass exodus of people from Louisiana. Now, President Bush, the state's governor, and New Orleans mayor are on top of the storm, telling people to get out of Gustav's way. Our team coverage continues with Casey Stiegel live in New Orleans. Casey.
Hurricane Gustav is slowing a little as it moves through the Gulf of Mexico, but Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal and Homeland Security Secretary Michael Chertoff are not backing off their preparations for this hurricane.
The vast majority of people have evacuated. If there's still a few holdouts, if they're listening to live TV right now, listening to the radio right now, please, if you're trying to shelter in place, this would be probably the last chance you have to evacuate.
In New Orleans, Mayor Ray Nagin implementing a mandatory curfew for the Crescent City.
Anybody who's on the street after the curfew kicks in will be arrested.
Governor Jindal also warns that the waiting hour is here. Those who decided not to get out of the storm's path will have to wait for help if they need it.
So if people choose to voluntarily defy a mandatory evacuation order, they shouldn't expect they can simply call 911 and see an ambulance, a fire engine, or go to their local hospital. The reality is these parachuters may not have the resources to respond. They'll do the best they can, but they're not going to have the resources to respond the way they normally would.
Nearly 2 million people across the Gulf are heeding government warnings, leaving by bus, train, plane, and car in order to miss the worst of this storm. The National Guard is in place, Red Cross shelters standing by in other states. There are thousands of spots waiting for those who need a place to stay. President Bush meeting with FEMA, saying the government is ready to step in and help.
The nation has come to know the strong and resilient spirit of the people of the Gulf Coast. They've made it through great challenges in the past, and they're going to make it through this one as well.
We are at a crucial hour right now. Hurricane Gustav expected to make landfall right here sometime tomorrow morning. Everyone watching and waiting to see if this is possibly another Katrina. In New Orleans, Casey Stiegel, My 9 News.
And we'll be going back live to Casey Stiegel in just a few minutes. But first, some evacuees from the Gulf Coast region are fleeing Gustav for the safer shores of New York and New Jersey. Christine Persichetti is at Newark Airport, where some have just arrived. Christine, what can you tell us?
Well, Megan, the airport in New Orleans is closed right now, but some of the last few flights from there arrived here at Newark and other area airports tonight. Evacuees coming here to wait out the storm.
It was a creepy experience, actually.
Ellie Shute says New Orleans was a ghost town this morning when he and his wife left for New York.
It looks haunting because you're like in a city, you don't know. Maybe it's like maybe it was like if there was like a nuclear attack. I don't know, but it feels very, very frightening.
The newlyweds, who just moved into their first home together in New Orleans a couple weeks ago, had to pack up and move out, evacuated like everyone else in the Big Easy until the big storm passes.
We actually had about 45 minutes to pack, to get everything ready, to get everything off our floor in case there was flooding.
They arrived here at JFK this evening with just a couple of suitcases. Inside, whatever valuables they could grab as they packed as fast as they could. Now, the couple who's staying with friends in New York is just left to wait, wondering when they'll be able to go back home.
It's anxiety-provoking. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if our house is going to be standing when we get back. It's tough.
The Shutes are hoping to go home on Thursday. Ellie is actually a music professor at Tulane who moved to New Orleans to help the university after Katrina. Megan?
All right, Christine, thank you. A woman in Nutley, New Jersey is keeping a close eye on Hurricane Gustav. Her daughter is a teacher and just moved to New Orleans. But as John Huddy explains, that's not the only strange twist of fate.
I never thought I'd be looking at this.
But Doreen Gagnon is. Hurricane Gustav swirling towards New Orleans, and her daughter Michelle, who is a teacher there.
She was very nervous, and I hadn't heard that in her voice the whole time that I was talking to her.
Well, Michelle is safe. She left New Orleans early this morning, driving to the safety of a friend's home in Baton Rouge. Michelle's mom has been on the phone with her all day, and we talked to Michelle this afternoon at her family's home in Nutley, New Jersey.
The city has things under control, and it was pretty calm. I never saw anything crazy. It was just people were leaving, doing what they had to do.
We'll talk about a way to start the school year. Michelle's only been teaching in New Orleans for 3 weeks, and this is the first year back for many of her students who were affected by Hurricane Katrina. And now, in a cruel twist of fate, they're dealing with this.
The kids were being pulled out of school to evacuate on Friday. My heart goes out to those families who this is their second experience.
Well, the good news is Michelle is safe and sound, and obviously that's a big relief for her family. Now, the folks she's staying with are battening down the hatches. They have a power generator, they have flashlights, extra water and food, basically all the essentials to weather the storm. Megan.
And we hope they all stay safe. Thank you, John. Volunteers from our area are already on the way to New Orleans and the Gulf Coast as Gustav prepares to deliver a 1-2 punch to the region. Countless hurricane helpers are set to aid those in need. As Tina Ezzedine tells us, some are driven by ghosts from the past.
Ready to go.
I'm worried, but I also feel confident that our staff down there can help out in a very tangible way and in a palpable way.
Rockland paramedics preparing their special operations trailer for New Orleans. Medical supplies, food in the form of chicken broth, aid for potential victims of Hurricane Gustav.
After Katrina, that was a huge issue, so we were able to help out in that capacity.
8 paramedics already in Louisiana helping to evacuate hospitals and nursing homes, taking the elderly and the ill to the state's capital city of Baton Rouge.
People are great. They really are. They're strong people down here. They've done this before. They live through this all the time. They're very appreciative of us.
As the country braces for Hurricane Gustav to make landfall as expected late tomorrow morning, New York responds, sending National Guard helicopters and 60 airmen and soldiers to help.
We are on alert to provide whatever services or supplies that would actually be needed, as we have done at other times.
Hurricane Gustav, 1 day away from a potentially disastrous hit on New Orleans, nearly 3 years since the agony of Hurricane Katrina.
These people have suffered so much, and we see so much suffering. What we must do as fellow citizens is do what we can to give them aid as immediately as we can.
At least one Newark, New Jersey organization issuing a community call to help New Orleans residents, reaching out, providing relief and recovery. I'm Tina Ezedine, My 9 News.
The threat of high winds and flooding has the entire Gulf region bracing for the worst. We continue our team coverage now live from Louisiana, where meteorologist John Bolaris is tracking the hurricane. John, you're in Morgan City now. That's just southwest of New Orleans. Tell us about the conditions in that area right now tonight.
Well, right now we're okay, Megan. They're going to start going down. They're going to hit us like a wall overnight as Morgan City is in the direct path of Hurricane Gustav that is due to move through this city between the hours of noon and 3. Right now, Gustav's still poised about 200 miles south and west, I should say south and east of Morgan City. But again, folks here, for the most part, this city is a ghost town. There have been a couple of families that decided to stay. I got here Scott. I'm going to bring him in here, Megan, with us. And you guys has decided to ride out the storm. What's the reason for that?
Oh, just gonna hang in there. Traffic's too bad to get out of here. So, I mean, we're in a good building. The building we're standing in on Front Street is walls are 16 inches thick. I mean, we're on a second level, so we got a big generator running. We got AC, food. You know, we're good here.
Does it make you feel a little bit uneasy when you see most of your neighbors, or you know, what, 12,000 people in town, 90% have gone?
Evacuating, yeah. I guess a little bit. It would. I mean, it's anybody, but we feel secure. We have faith in the good Lord above that He's going to keep us safe. So we're good.
Well, very best of luck. We're going to be riding it out with you. So, all right. So, hang in there. It's going to get rough here right now. We're just going to start getting to the outer bands of some of the rain beginning to move in here within the next, I'd say, next half hour, and then it's going to really hit the fan, as we say, overnight and during the day tomorrow. Back to you, Megan, live from Morgan City, Louisiana.
All right, John. We wish you the best of luck. Stay safe out there.
Okay, thank you.
We have much more ahead on Hurricane Gustav. In just a few minutes, we go back live to Casey Stiegel in New Orleans to find out what provisions are being made for people choosing not to evacuate. Plus, it's the big Labor Day weekend muscular dystrophy telethon. So why is Jerry Lewis asking people to contribute to a different charity? Stay with us.